Well, well, well. Here we are, Caleb. Another week.
Here we are. It's time
There's people
again.
in the chat. Episode 90. We're only 10
How are
episodes
you,
away
good sir?
from 3 digits.
I know, the big one.
The big one. When it all ends. I'm doing fine. We're living our lives differently day by day. Welcome to 2020. How about you? Everything going on all right over there?
Yeah, I had a massive fail on YouTube and production in general. And it was
Yeah.
the first time in a while where something completely stumped me. We can get into it after we crack open something to sip
Okay.
on here. I'm actually just pulling up the chat. But in short, audio phase issues. Reversed audio or 180 out of sync audio phase.
Wait, when you posted to YouTube, you mean?
Somewhere in the production line, it all went sideways. Half or more than half of the people couldn't hear anything in the video, which I've never experienced that before. And on my end, I don't know if it's an Apple thing, but every device I checked things on was fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So
It's
this is an
crazy stuff.
uploaded video. This wasn't a live stream or something.
Correct. This is a video that went up yesterday. I had to take it down, private it, and redo it, part of it. So
360 Grad is saying, Caleb, your mic sounds scratchy since about 5 episodes. I do hear a little something in my ear. But I don't know.
scratchy.
Well, it's like a.
Let me
it's
mute
not,
my mic,
it's-
see if you hear it. And I'm back. There's
What's
a jet
weird
going
is when-
overhead right now.
Well, what's weird is when you mute it, I still hear you ever so slightly. So it doesn't fully mute you.
Interesting. So something's going on there that I'll have to check out. More bugs. It could very well be related to the issue I had with that video, because there's a video about this setup, and of course since
distortion.
recording, I've changed a bunch of stuff. Oh, distortion.
Well, they said
Let me,
distortion without distorting, and then it's a bit harsh on his mic.
Check. Turning it down a little bit. How's this? Test 1 2.
It's
Test 1
pretty-
2.
Yeah, there's still some sort of weird
that
thing,
better?
but I think we're going to be okay.
Weird.
But you're still getting
also do that.
awesome video.
See if that's any better.
Sounds like it's clipping, sort of. How is my audio? Are mine levels okay, everybody? Neil, come on, get in here, kid. I mean, you sound okay in my ears, but I don't have my headphones turned. I don't know. It's all right. Benjamin says better.
It's better, he says.
All right. Let's
Maybe
just go
we'll
with
see
it.
if this is. I turned off all processing, so.
Neil says it's better. Gem is good. Well,
Okay,
thank you,
good.
Benjamin. I appreciate that. Hey, Andres. Shazam! What's happening? Is better now. Cool. Okay. Well, we are here, and it is Wednesday, November 18th. Believe it or not, we are just about a week and a day away from what is my favorite holiday. A little sadder this year because of what's happening in the world and some of the restrictions around holidays, but Thanksgiving in the United States of America. And we'll just call it right now because of family coming in and things like that. Not large amounts of family, but family nonetheless for both Caleb and I. We are going to go dark next Wednesday. Because next Thursday is sort of an insane thing. It's like the kids come home, my daughter from college, all that stuff. You've got family coming in. I have the in-laws coming. And so there you go. And Ben, by the way, Shazam. Yeah, the fact that I didn't even bring that up at the beginning of the show, I forgot to. Ben has been on, we'll say, a psychobabble edit for the show that he is working on. He basically shot a food show in the Czech Republic, which is already on air, and I think he's constantly editing that show, and new episodes are going up. So it's like 7 days a week. Remember a few weeks ago, Ben was like, I really like this. I'm settling into the groove. And you're like, yeah, but remember that point where you hit it, and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think he hit that point today. I think he's editing like crazy, but he's kind of had it. So he needed a good night's sleep is basically what it all boils down to. So he will be back with us in 2 weeks when we come back, week after Thanksgiving. And that's the deal. Larry, thanks for coming in live.
Welcome, Larry.
Yeah, and thanks for watching the content. And welcome to the live stream. Sky is here, and we got Shazam and David. David's drinking something. He put his EOS R on his DJI RS2, and it probably didn't. And it's buttery smooth. It didn't break. And speaking of buttery smooth, what are we going to have to drink today, Mr. Caleb Pike?
Well, for myself, sticking with the beer theme, and today is going to be Goose Island.
Oh, I like Goose Island. Okay, I like Goose Island. They are an Illinois
Oktoberfest.
Yep.
Okay. They literally have an island in the city.
Well, they have Guillermo, Memo, Pat, Bart's here. Awesome.
Hey.
Yes, we know about that fire, and I'm glad you're gonna be anxious. Well, are you leaving the house? If you're leaving the house, you stay home. Make everybody come to your house. So Goose Island Sophie, which is a Ben Gem. I'm representing for him. Happy holidays to you, Scott. I'm having the Glenlivet Founders Reserve, which I haven't had in a while, which I do like very much. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, you had a stint. Oh, snap! Okay, it's time.
Oh, dip. No, it's not. I have to be
party
good.
It up.
And speaking of, at 4:30 p.m. Let's do a cheers. Come on, let's do a cheers.
Yeah, let's do it. Cheers, everybody! Thanks for joining us. Clink.
Goose Island Sophie. It's a farmhouse ale. Very good. A saison, basically.
Nice.
And that's a very, very good one. Is Sophie? Yeah, I think the Sophie is the one that I like. Okay. Well,
Lovely.
Here we are. 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Mark Toya, who is a cinematographer and a director, and he just shot his own feature film, self-funded. Michael's here from PDX, speaking a little French on the side. And Harrison, here we go. We got Oh, I can't do that. That's a tongue twister. I'll just say Flock of Seagulls is here.
Flock it toe. Flocito, Flocito?
Flocito
Nice.
Flocito o Flocito. Flocito o Flocito. I'm going to get myself in trouble. Chicago beer. I said the critique for my channel.
Nice.
IPA. Yeah, the Sophie. I hate Matilda, by the way. And that's not a personal thing for a person. I think Matilda tastes awful, and I love Sophie. That's my own. But the Matilda, that's nasty beer. So there you go. I thought I was going to like Matilda. And then the 312 is very famous. Okay, good. Sorry about that. Caleb, tell us about this phase issue on YouTube. So you uploaded your video, and just sort of and when you play it locally on your computer and you play it through the devices where you're playing it back, it's fine, but a lot of people had issues with it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I didn't look into it too much. Also, I just realized my mic is dipping in just ever so slightly. Whoop. And Fuzzy's dropping. Jeez. Okay, so yeah, it sounded a little off to me. And I think what may have happened, it could be locally here, but I'm pretty sure what's happening is that I had some weird reverb thing, and so I pulled it into isotope. And for a second, I thought I was being all kinds of smart, and I was like Curtis Judd, like doing all this crazy stuff in isotope RX7. And I'm pretty sure I screwed something up massively. And apparently, all my Apple devices figured out, like, oh, he's an idiot. And he did this. Let me flip it for you. But then when it went up, a lot of people weren't able to hear it. So the left and the right channel were canceling each other out. or it was 180 degrees out of phase or something.
Yeah.
So I'm not smart enough to deal with or figure out what exactly
I'm
went
not.
down, but
It
yeah.
happened.
Yeah, first time.
I got a file from a client the other day, and he's just like, "Oh, we shot this thing by Loch Ness or by some lake in Scotland, and a boat went by, and they couldn't reshoot it." And they said, "What's the name of that software you use?" And it's RX, but it's the full-on editor. And I hadn't really dug into the Spectrum, part of it, which I've used in the old days of Soundtrack Pro and stuff. And I went in there and I just painted out essentially the entire boat noise, just line by line, and it just magically went away. So those people over at Isotope are killing it with their software. It is amazing. And Andres apparently knows a lot about Goose Island. Let me just tell you, I love yeast in my beer, but that's some nasty yeast in Matilda. That's all I have to say. No, I didn't say. Stop it. That's not. You're so floquito.
No, I was laughing at something else. Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, come on.
Share your channel with us, Andre.
Yeah.
It sounds like you
please.
do a beer reviewing, drink reviewing, beverage reviewing deal. So that'd be cool to check out. Yeah, RX is ridiculous. I don't know, a year or two ago, I bought the RX-7 Advanced.
Yeah, you and I were talking about it when you were going to get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't used it as much, but man, when you need to use it, it is unbelievable. And a couple people have reached out to me being like, "Oh, Caleb, I got this crazy thing I don't know how to fix." Or like my main microphone wasn't on and they weren't monitoring audio. So they're using like one of the cameras scratch audio from across like a gymnasium, just awful situations. And I've fixed it a couple times for them because it's amazing what you can do. And now those people are coming back a lot more often. And I'm like, buy it yourself, dude. Get out of here.
Get it. Yeah, just get the software. There's also the one that I want to try, which is by Isotope, called Dialogue Match. So you can record.
Yeah.
Let's say you recorded your video in your old space, and then you had your new space, and you wanted it. You do like a pickup in there for a VO. Apparently, it works really well, where it just listens to and analyzes the original recording, and then it will work to put your dialogue into something that matches that. I mean, even if it gets 85 to 90% there. So that's the next thing that I want to try. So that's exciting.
Yeah. They even have you heard of the voice contour tool?
No.
So you can.
That's
in
there in advanced?
It's in advanced. And what it does, it's black magic. But you can change the way someone sounds. So if you have someone in an interview who always ends a sentence like this, and no matter what, it's always kind of a question mark, you can actually go in there and change question mark to question mark.
Get out of town.
It's insane. You can just look it up. Isotope contour, something contour. It's on YouTube. They have a clip, and it's messed up what you can do with that. So you can completely change. If a client just can't seem to get it right, don't worry about it. Just whoop.
Yeah. That's well, even for my videos, I do like multiple takes when I do instructional videos for companies, and it's that inflection, and then you need to make that cut work, or that word, or the way you end that. Like a lot of times, I'll end something and then go right into something else. So if that would allow it to, basically end the thought, that would be huge.
Yeah.
What's with the burping
100%.
today? It feels like a burpy kind of day.
Andre dropped his channel, so everyone in the chat can check that out. I'm trying to see where it was there.
You're talking craft beer. Hey, Andres, you should have...
Podcast and channel is Talking Craft
Beer. You should reach out to Jeremy Wyden, Widen. Widen. Jeremy Wyden. Find him. He's not that hard to find. He's in the Bay Area. That boy drinks a new beer every single day, and he knows his stuff. He'd be fun to have on the show if you have people like that. And he's an amazing wood worker, too. Like a wood, like he makes things from scratch. I feel like we're going to have a little...
Good stuff.
I feel like we're going to get a little... Go ahead. I feel like we're gonna get like a little
I'm
bit of
sorry.
a breather. No, go. Do it. I'm in.
Damn
It's
it!
one of those
I
days.
hate that when you're like, no, it's okay.
No,
It's
that's okay.
I was just gonna say, how far? What do we got? 15 minutes in, and we're just chilling. I love it. Not
I'm
even
reading what
close. We
people are
haven't even
saying.
mentioned the FX6 yet.
Benjamin says dialogue
Good.
matches bananas. So good. That's good to know. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to trying that one. That's pretty exciting. What's everybody else up to? I would love to hear from you in the chat, and not just questions about things. And I'm sure everybody will, talk a little bit about their feelings on this new camera that Sony has announced and will be shipping soon at right around the same time as the C70 from Canon, which is kind of interesting. So they announced it later, but it's going to come to market at about the same time. So I would say it's a slow day. I mean, it's a slow day only because we're chilling. We're just kind of like, why do we have to be on? It's been a crazy few weeks for me, I can tell you that. So I just need a little chillaxing time. Shazam's very happy with the. Go ahead, tell me. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I apologize. I was that huge messed up grin was I was pulling up News Shooter, and so I could check, have some information ready for when we talk about the FX6, and I accidentally dropped the second S in that URL.
Oh no! What happened?
And it went to newshooter.com, which is for sale. Luckily, it didn't take me to an actual website, but it's for sale. So if you got $7,000 looking for a unique URL, there you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, you're saying?
I was just reading what some of the people are saying. Flaquito said, try saying FX6 5 times in a row. I'm just going to say Flaquito 5 times in a row. It looks like Sony is killing it, putting together a short nature doc. Super pumped about that. That's good. Shazam's loving the C200 on the Crane 3S. That's cool. Nice killer combo. Any thoughts on the YouTube TOS right to monetize? Looks like they will be putting ads on all videos at their discretion. Not the ones that I posted a few weeks ago. Oh, by the way, they came back to me and said I'm remonetized. I'm okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that was nice. Memo says chill pill. Finally back to some production for work. Was exclusively managing live streams for months. That's nice, Neil. Must be nice. And Andre said that RX8, they now have a spectral recovery which helps recover the top end of web calls. It's amazing. There you go.
Wild times.
I think they're making some smagical products over there. And if you didn't know what smagical means, it's super magical. It's magic. Yeah, it's at the top end of magic. It's beyond comprehension. You just have to accept it. We don't accept magic normally. We have to wonder about it. But if it's magical, you don't think about it. It just is. And that's what RX seems to be for people. Shall we mention the name of that website? No. Right. Yeah. All right. Sony FX6 finally has been released to the world. Would you say this is a big surprise, or would you say it's exactly what you thought it was going to be?
I would say it's what we were kind of expecting. I think the spin on it is kind of interesting. So instead of just being another full frame option that's not as good as the FX9, it's kind of interesting to think about it as an A7S III with a cinema body.
But that's kind of, let's be honest, that's in fact not kind of, that's exactly what the FS5 is. The FS5 and the FS5 II were essentially the A7 series inside of a cinema body, because you had the same recording options inside of the FS5, you still do, in the FS5 II, that were in like the A7S II. It was 50
it's not the
megabits.
Same sensor, right?
No, that's the difference. But they, that I'm aware of. But what was similar was they kind of killed it when it came to recording. So this is truly a 10-bit. This is obviously a full-frame camera, so that's a big deal. But it really is sort of a little bit more than just the A7S3 in a cinema body, but I think it largely is an A7S3 in a cinema body.
Yeah.
So I
So that's
guess,
kind of the vibe I got from it. What do you think?
yeah. Yeah, I think that, what's really interesting about this is the conversation between full frame and Super 35, because, the elephant in the room is that as soon as you want to use Super 35 as a crop and you want to use crop lenses, the one huge thing you have to understand about this camera is that you're forced into an HD recording. So you only get Super 35 if you go full HD.
Yep, super sad. I don't know if clear image zoom is on this camera, but I think Philip Bloom mentioned on my video or on a Twitter chat about the A7S3. I think it was on my channel because I mentioned the same thing. You can't do Super 35 because there's nothing to grab. But apparently,
Yeah.
clear image zoom still gives you more than you would expect. So I'm gonna have to investigate that further. But yeah, regardless,
Yeah.
that's a huge sad note for me because you lose a huge array of lenses. But Sony probably expects most people to just grab a couple G Masters and go along your merry way, right?
Yeah, but it does show you the huge advantage of going with a almost 6K sensor, right? I mean, that's really where you see the big advantage. And when you were talking about it, do you mean that you were like online, you were just talking about it, or you did a live stream, or?
It was in the comment section of I
Okay,
think my
got it.
review or something.
Yeah.
Because I
So
had
it
said
says,
it wasn't
yeah.
possible, but it is.
So, yeah. So, yeah, you can clear image zoom at 1.4 and cover S35 lenses, supposedly. Well, if that's the case, then maybe it's not that big of a deal. It's just interesting
But
to
it's
see.
not going to be the same as shooting,
No.
getting a 4K APS-C readout essentially.
Yeah.
But even when you factor that in, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think most people want full frame. One thing I found really interesting, and I was watching Gerald Dunn's review because, come on,
Yeah.
why even bother?
Just go
If he
there.
has something up the same day, I don't even think about looking for the live event release, whatever.
Yep. Yep.
So Gerald's video is phenomenal. Everyone should check it out. And I think the thing that bummed me out the most was actually the audio XLR handle situation.
Yeah.
The fact that if you don't have the handle, you have scratch audio with a little
Yeah.
microphone that's built
it's a
in.
problem.
That's it. So
Yeah,
that
that's like
massively
going back.
blows.
That's going back to the original C100 Mark I. Let's just break that down.
Yikes.
Because the C100 Mark II at least had a 1/8 inch mic jack. So you could plug in, a wireless system or something. And while it wasn't balanced XLR inputs, you could get a mic on there. So if you were flying it, I mean, like, at least put an 1/8 inch jack on the camera. Because if you're flying the thing, you can put, at the very least, a wireless go onto a hot shoe, and you can get audio into the camera, and pretty decent. I mean, definitely good enough for a lot of stuff that people would be doing. So
Yeah.
So I would say that is a problem, and I did notice that. And if you look at the C70, while it's a very different camera, Super 35 versus full frame, so that is a big differentiator between the two. But they at least got mini XLRs right onto the body, and it's pretty amazing how much they fit into that camera body and what it can do. So the fact that it doesn't have that 3.5 millimeter jack is just crazy. I agree with you, Igor. Definitely.
One thing that could solve that is I'm trying to find a photo of it, but on the top of the camera, there's like a custom 30-pin looking connector where the handle connects.
Yep.
And if someone is able to reverse engineer that or come up with some kind of solution,
Yep.
and I think the biggest bummer, honestly, if this problem existed on the FX9, I wouldn't care.
Yep.
But the fact that this is such a small body and they don't let you do something that simple, that's where it really sucks, right? Because it's small enough. You're not going to put an FX9 on a Ronin and run around with a tiny one-handed gimbal, you know?
Sure.
But on this camera, a lot of people probably will.
Sure.
So that's where it's a real bummer. And the fact that, like, you know, old Red cameras even have a 3.5 millimeter, like a Scarlet X or something. And Sony
Yep.
didn't do it. It's just weird.
Yeah. I
Although,
think it's
question for
what?
you.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can't use your Sony wireless system with this, right? Like, it needs that hot shoe attachment.
It needs that hot shoe attachment. But
Yeah.
I heard something. I started to read something where somebody said that maybe something can happen down the road. There's a lot of things that are surprising, and they're going to keep the FS5 Mark II, which is down to about $4,500. You do get RAW out from the camera, which you actually have to pay for quite a bit of money on the FX9, so that's a little odd. I do have to say, though, it's very compelling to look at that C70 right now from Canon and that speed booster option on there. Because they're building the glass that's on their booster. They're clearly building it to work with their lenses, but obviously any EF mount lenses. So you kind of have this weird thing where for $5,500 US plus their booster, you can get a full frame field of view and use full frame glass, but you can also have a super 35 millimeter camera that can crop to 16 millimeter, but still stay 4K. And so,
And what's a megapixel count again?
it's not any different. So I don't understand
What,
why.
30?
Oh no! It's like effective like 10 megapixel on the
On the C70?
Yeah.
Interesting. So we're gonna have to wait and see, but that I have a hard time believing that's gonna look sharp. That combo with the Metabones,
Yeah, I'd
or
like
not
to see.
Metabones, but with their speed
whatever
booster. I
their-
can't wait to see. But I
If
have a
it
hard time
is sharp,
believing.
but if it is sharp,
Oh yeah, it's gonna.
then
Look,
that's a pretty
and this-
pretty compelling. Yeah.
interesting.
Pat has the FX9, and if this was available when I bought that, I would have had a challenging decision, but I'm glad to have the big brother. I mean, you get a lot more recording options in the FX9 as well. You know, it's pretty limited. Even though there's some decent data rates in this camera, you're kind of going from a relatively low data rate and then making a jump to about 200 and I think 40 megabits per second at 23.9, 8. And there's nothing in between. Whereas a lot of these other cameras will have things like a 160 megabit per second, recording option in long GOP, where you're still getting what looks to be a very good picture, but without having that overhead of getting into that sort of 250 to 400 range, which fills up cards and hard drives pretty quickly.
I'm looking forward to seeing how S-Log performs on it as well. Because as we all know, every camera, even though it has the same sensor, well, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But the A7S III, which I have right here, actually, the only thing I don't like about this camera is log. It's funky. Like, everything looks great except for yellow. So, like, this desk right here, which you don't see in the shot. Actually, I guess it could go like this. This desk, when I was filming the video for this setup that I'm using in this room, like this color right here, there's some yellows in here. It's oak yellows and some warm tones.
Yeah.
When you film this with the A7S III in log, this looks green. So like right here, this kind of yellowish color, that's green.
I have to go,
that's
I have
not
to go
yellow
full
at
screen.
all.
Wait, hold on. I got to go full screen.
Oops, sorry. It's all right.
Yeah, no, I got
Just
it.
look
Go ahead.
over here. This piece of wood right here. That's straight up green.
Okay.
Greenish yellow. But definitely not look. It does not look right. So I have to tweak that like every single shot. So I was talking to some people on Twitter. And by the way, if you guys have an A7S III and have had weird issues, send me your footage because I'm working on a LUT that goes over the correction LUTs.
Okay.
So you slap on your Sony S-Log whatever to 709, then
Yeah.
apply this, and that'll deal with that. But that's the only thing I don't like. But it's really weird because it's really sad because it was so close. Everything else looks great, but
Yeah.
like that color chart, I don't have one on me, but that little whatever brand there's one behind you on that
X-ray.
chair.
X-ray.
Yeah, you point an A7S III on that, and the yellow chip is right in between green and yellow in S-Log 2, and then S-Log 3 is similar. So it'll be interesting to see what this camera's like. But it's got that Epic ND, which is sick.
Yeah.
Very
Bryce
awesome.
said, Gerald says if you set color phase in the picture profile to +2, it gets rid of the green cast. Okay.
Which is somewhat true. It does indeed bring that greenish yellow back to yellow. What was that? Your toast done over there?
I had a pen in my hand and it hit the hit the crystal.
It sounded just like your Pop-Tarts are ready, Sonny.
The pie.
Over in the kitchen.
Time for pie.
Yeah. That is true, but what that setting does is it takes, if you can imagine, a vector scope.
Yeah.
So you've got like all your different colors. It just rotates the whole thing by a certain amount.
Yeah, so it's not
everything
just skewing
goes
green. Yeah,
goes around.
Everything turns.
So it does fix the problem. But and I actually talked to Gerald about this, and he mentioned like a lot of people like that skin tone lining a little more pink than red or orange.
Yeah.
So that's an option to try, but
interesting.
Just trying to get that stinking yellow.
Benjamin said, saw Potato Jack compare C300 Mark III to the FX6, and by the way, the sensor in the C70 is the same as the C300 Mark III. For a shot or two, and the C300 Mark III looked a fair amount better. The black shirt was black on the Canon. It was magenta on the FX6, and then follows up, was there maybe some IR pollution with the FX6? And different lighting is also, I mean, not in those comparisons probably, because it's probably the same lighting, but different lighting can have a huge effect on it as well. So when you work on your LUT on LUT, will that be created for different lighting too? Will you have to create one that's using daylight and one that's using tungsten, one that's using natural light? Do you know if that's necessary? Will you be looking at that?
I'm trying to get it so it's as long as you have white balance close, it's good enough. Like I'm trying to get it narrowed down to where it's only hitting that funky yellow color, but I haven't finalized it or released anything. But so far, essentially, I'm creating a LUT for the thing that I have to do with every shot, which is take that weird yellow and kind of bump it back.
That's why you're asking people to send you shots too, because it helps you figure out.
Yeah, just to get a little, not my own stuff, because we all kind of shoot similar. I feel like often similar lighting conditions and whatnot for our own stuff. Bryce asks, Caleb, is there any Sony camera you like log on? Yes, actually, from the cameras I've worked with or owned. I'm getting choppy here. Jeez.
Yeah.
The Sony F3.
Yes, that's right.
S-Log 1 Uno. That thing is amazing. You don't need any correction LUTs. And if you take any of these modern cameras, if you take any of these modern cameras, you can't just you have to pretty much use a LUT, because unless you want to spend hours correcting stuff, right? Because if you just start playing with saturation and contrast, it's a disaster color-wise. So you need to properly remap all that stuff, unless you're shooting a Hollywood film with charts and everything. Yeah. But the F3, just grab it and play with curves and bump the saturation, you're done. It looks gorgeous. So I love that camera. Anyway.
Yes. I'm just going back though, because if you haven't rewatched Caleb's desk setup video, go and rewatch it. He has to restock his liquor cabinet. There you go. I'm really going back. Interesting. Yeah, I still haven't used the C70. So it's really hard for me to have any, I don't have any real world experience. The last Cinema EOS camera I shot with a lot was when I was doing the video for it, is the C500 Mark II, which I was very impressed with. But I think if I were going to look at a camera right now, it would really be in the Cinema EOS line. I probably would skip that, even though I love the idea of having a full frame camera. I think I would probably go C300 Mark III with that dual gain output sensor, or the C70. So I'd like to try those two cameras at some point. I think that'd be cool. So have we seen the Synco G1 2.4 gigahertz wireless lavalier microphone system? Have you seen that, Caleb?
Potentially, I feel like every 5 minutes a company comes out with a Rode Wireless Go competitor.
Yeah.
If that's what you're talking about, that like small little guy. But let me guys know if you're interested, if this interests you at all. But I've been toying with the idea of buying like all of the competitor options and doing a comparison. Because at this point, there's like 12 copycats.
I
right
know,
now.
so many.
Some are just like $100 version of the Rode Wireless Goes. Others, they've gotten creative and taken kind of the main idea and then mixed it up. Like, as you know, a bunch of companies have the same kit, but you have 2 transmitters, 1 receiver, things like that.
That's right. Yep.
So, toying with the idea, and it's on the list, but it hasn't worked its way to the top. Okay. But yeah, no, I haven't seen exactly this G1A2. But
have you? Somebody was talking about. I'm in between the C70s, Andres, and the Komodo C70 winning since I have RF lenses, and Komodo still has no good autofocus. That's interesting. The other thing that's interesting is MTF Services is also doing RF mount conversions for Fujinon MK Cine zooms. So the 18 to 35 and the 50 to 1. Is it 50 to 150 or is it 50 to 130?
I think it's 50 to 150.
Yeah, so those two lenses you can now get converted to RF mount. So if you're like on a Komodo, that's a pretty interesting, and I guess if you're on a Canon like a C70, that would be pretty interesting too. If you could use obviously you wouldn't be able to take advantage of the autofocus stuff. But if you wanted 2 really lightweight, good quality zoom lenses, which basically don't breathe at all, then that would be pretty compelling. 50 to 135. Thank you, Bryce. That's right. So it's 18 to 55, and I wasn't totally right. I said 130. That's right. Duclos is also doing the MK zoom conversions. So it's Duclos and MTF are the 2 companies doing that. I don't know if MTF is approved by Fujinon. I'm pretty sure they are. But
they're pretty legit, right? They're like super legit.
Oh no, they're super legit. Yeah. They're definitely legit. So this camera is interesting. I mean, the other thing is obviously Sony is starting to kill it on the AF front. So whether or not you're in love with the colors or not, that's really the thing. That we have, it's supposedly the same sensor. So in theory, unless they've tuned it differently, Caleb, then the problems that you're seeing in the A7S III could be problems that you're seeing in the FX9, whereas the FX6. But the FX9 supposedly has the same, sharing a sensor with the Venice, right? Isn't that correct? It's just not
I can't
capable.
Recall. Yeah.
I don't know. It's something like that. Somebody tell us. It's just too much. It's making my head hurt now. Okay, cool. Yeah, look, Tommy's getting lenses in now. Are you going to shine a light through those lenses? Come on. Coming from having lots of Sigma EF glass, what are your guys' thoughts on possibly adapting Sigma EF glass with FX6? Not really interested in investing in Sony glass.
You could, but it's just not going to... It's probably not going to work great. The Sigma E mount stuff is pretty solid with
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Sony bodies, but again, you don't. It sounds like you don't want to do that life. So
I know all
Yeah.
light goes through all the lenses. I meant, are you gonna shine a light through the lens? I didn't mean, are you gonna? Of course. Stop it, Tommy. You're kidding me. Have a drink.
feel not a science guy over here.
Yeah. We know. I'm just talking about, are you gonna pick up a light and put it right into the lens? Okay, so AF is a big deal. So, and that's really the problem, for Larry, is if you start putting EF mount lenses on an E mount camera and you want the AF to work the way you think it should work, it's just not going to happen. Native means something when it comes to, especially autofocus. So, each manufacturer you're getting advantages and disadvantages from, but they all know what lenses they make, and they all generally all have little menu items where you can turn on parameters that say, we know our lenses aren't perfect, but if you turn this on, we have a profile for our lens, and we can essentially correct aberrations in that lens inside of the camera. So that's, just something to think about. How big of a deal is it that the C70 does not record RAW? To me personally, it's not a big deal for people who are in the day in, day out, we'll call it corporate production, because the data rates are high enough on the C70, and it's 10-bit, it's 422, it's got log, it's got wide gamut. If the data rates were really low, if you're talking like original A7 series, A7S, A7S2, that, 100 megabits per second recording in 4K in log and stuff, then you can run into some big problems. But that's not really what you're getting out of a C70. That's not what you're really going to get out of an FX6 at 240 megabits per second. So really, the question is, do you like the format of the camera? Because both Caleb and I would probably say right off the bat, we would just wish that every NLE supported Blackmagic RAW. And that every camera had Blackmagic RAW as an option. And it's not that ProRes RAW doesn't work, and in fact, it can, and it is capable of giving you more control. It's just not implemented the same way Blackmagic RAW is,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Surprisingly, if you're in Resolve and you're working with the RAW off of the R5, you have tremendous control over it. There's tons of raw controls when you're working with it, but then you pop into Final Cut Pro and you can barely do anything. So that's also,
unless you're M1ing it.
Right.
Which is a
So,
whole other thing.
whoa, what is it? Oh, Benjamin said, based on an interview I saw with Philip Bloom this morning, the AF on the FX6 has an annoyance. You have to hit something on the handle, then touch the screen. You can't just touch the screen. Oh, it's like a two-part process.
Gerald talked about that.
But it's like you have
Sounds
to put
like
your
a thing they
elbow
could
onto
fix.
something, and then you press. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You gotta do something with the joystick before you can touch.
That's poppycock. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Cool. C70 sadly has no SDI ports.
What is a C70 going for? $5,000? 55?
5,500.
Right.
It has a
And
time
the
code port.
65 for the FX6? Or no?
6,000 for the base.
Got it.
So, yeah. It's interesting. I'm
Got
interested to see how these new M1 chips in the Macs perform with these formats, like these XF AVC formats and stuff like that. That'll be interesting to see how well they handle that natively in Final
I think it's
Cut
going to
Pro.
smoke them. I mean, have you seen the videos of people playing back and editing Canon RAW 8K files on the new Air?
No.
And it's a joke. It looks like you're
kidding?
playing back a 480p YouTube video.
Are you trying to make me feel bad because I bought a 16-inch MacBook Pro this summer? Yes, you are.
I feel bad. I've got a 16-inch here. And right after
You know
I
what,
bought mine, they updated it silently.
My wife can't wait to get this 16-inch MacBook Pro next year when the new one comes out, hopefully.
Yeah. Man, it's tempting. That Mac Mini, It's going to have the
Yeah.
best thermal performance of the three. What is it? $800?
Yeah, it's like
$700?
$700
Ridiculous.
base. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, for all of these years we've been complaining about Apple and their pricing, and here they are, and
Yeah.
they're yeah, yeah,
Just
it's
app
crazy.
support. I would be terrified to switch to their new
Oh,
architecture.
I wouldn't do it until
Given
next
the
fall.
amount of custom little thingy things that I've installed and
No,
software I use and stuff. Ugh.
you would literally have to be, basically in the whole quote unquote iWork infrastructure, Final Cut Pro 10, and like Pixelmator and Affinity. And if you use anything else outside of that, you're totally screwed. Yeah. So it'll be
But
interesting.
heck, if you for another $700 to have like a module that I can connect to a monitor and just use that for editing, that's almost worth it,
Yeah. Andre says, could it be possible to output an image from the C70 timecode port by doing a firmware update? I don't think so. Because, you have to think about that port is tied into a motherboard and the routings of stuff, and it's just not, I don't think it's designed for a video signal. That would be my guess. I might be wrong. Yeah. If Blackmagic adopts the RF mount, would that make RF mount lenses the best investment going forward? That's a really interesting thing to say, because in the olden days, when this young whippersnapper over here was coming up and taking over the world, EF mount ruled, and really did until E mount showed up. I mean, and even then, EF mount lenses still ruled the world because there were so many of them out there. Everybody was just adapting them to E mount. We are seeing more and more cameras adopting. I mean, I was surprised that Komodo adopted RF mount, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So
True.
If Blackmagic did that, that would be pretty interesting. I don't know. I mean, would there be a reason for them not to? They adopted EF mount. What do you think?
I just think it's I mean there has to be some trickiness involving the I don't know, whatever. I don't know anything about lens mount design and the algorithms or tech behind it. It seems to me like pretty straightforward. There's only so many pins, and they all go somewhere.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some reason people haven't switched, because you can't lose with it, right? If you're thinking about stills lenses, there's like no reason not to use an RF mount because it has so many advantages, right?
So many.
So many. The adapters, all this great stuff. I don't know if it's cost. I don't know if there's a license involved, but there's got to be some reason. So it is great to see people adapting it or adopting it because it makes a lot of sense. I think E-mount's going to age pretty poorly pretty quickly because of the disadvantage of the smaller, lens mount physically versus these new giant mounts from, Canon, Nikon.
Yeah.
You can just do more crazy stuff with it.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning when E-mount started to take over. Do you remember the Mark Gen 1 E-mount lenses? Like those awful kit zooms that were like silver.
They were the worst. Yeah. They weighed 3 ounces. It was basically a plastic lens with a plastic lens body. They were unbelievable. It was so bad, and nobody was making any. And then it almost felt like overnight we just had tons and tons of E-mount lenses. But people are still adapting. I mean, it's really becoming compelling now if you're a Sony user to really think about investing in E-mount for the AF system. So if you're relying upon that AF system day in and day out, then that really makes a lot of sense. And if you're an FX9 person and an FX6 person, A7S3, then that could be a good investment. But I think RF has got a long, it's got a long way to go in terms of, how long. I think what I'm saying is I think it's going to last for a long time, RF. I think RF is going to be here to stay. And it's interesting what you're saying about E-mount lenses. I haven't really thought about that. They have locking EF mounts too, but you don't see that very oftentimes to handle some of those larger lenses. But it's not a very robust mount unless you get locking E-mount, which they have on the, some of their, like the FS7 II has a locking E-mount. And it's nicely implemented. It's just built in there into the camera body, and you just put the lens on there and you just turn it. Works well, but yeah. But it doesn't look like they put that on the FX6, does it? And does the FX9 have the locking E-mount, or did they just kind of do away with it and say it's just kind of like the way Canon has? It's just not a standard feature. Any feelings?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Matt's saying a BMPCC 6K would be a great mirrorless. Do you agree? And do you mean mirror? I don't think they're going to do mirrorless mirrors, but do you mean like a new pocket camera?
Yeah, I think Blackmagic has a lot they could do with. I can't wait to see what they do, but it'll probably be several years. But at some point, they're going to refresh. But right now, I mean, you're seeing a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema. Up, bulb just went out. Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K would be great. A great mirrorless, like a normal mirrorless camera.
Yeah,
because they already have the Pocket
have
6K.
A 6K. Yeah. I think they have some changes they could make though. Was that I got my two B7Cs from DVE store last week. That's cool. Those are cool little bulbs. Those apertures.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I finally got them. They finally showed up, which is good.
Nice.
Yeah, no locking mount on the FX6, FX7. Yes, a locking mount. Yeah, it's just this non-standard thing that's going on between these manufacturers. So I don't understand that. Caleb, what do you think? Anything else that looked interesting to you about the FX6? Anybody in the chat? I'm just kind of bringing up what people are talking about, but
yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think it's a great camera. The features look really great. The only thing is that silly handle audio issue.
Yeah,
and just keeping in mind, it is. We've kind of become used to this whole 6K sensor, 4K capture thing.
Yeah.
And if you do a lot of punch-ins, which I do a ton, you notice it right away.
Yeah.
Gone are the days to like scale to 130%, 130% and not notice the loss in quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
That the body size, it's cool.
Yeah, it's good. But missing that audio port. I mean, you got every other port on the camera. You've got time code.
But I think most people are gonna be running around like this, doing this number, and I think it'll be fine. It's just an annoying thing given the size of the camera and the potential. Because I don't know about you guys, but I always like shrinking things down to this like little tiny. You're on the subway, doing your thing, but you can't do that. So
no. There's a couple other comments here, which is wish you could record ProRes RAW externally and get the gyro data for stabilization, because there's no IBIS in this camera. But apparently it's recording metadata, which you can bring into Sony's app to help stabilize it, which is a little odd because it's 4K. So how much can you stabilize it? And then who's ever going to go into that app?
I don't think, I think the people that are buying this type of camera, I don't know. And Igor would know if this is the Igor. I can't quite see the icon, but he's a great dude. He would know, but I feel like a lot of people, it's a new camera, so we're all like spec peeping. But when it comes to actual in the field use, a camera of this price range, most people aren't messing around with RAW, right? Like for those of us who are shooting interviews and docs that aren't going to be seen on the big screen.
Yep.
We're rocking 422 10-bit.
Yep.
ProRes or below.
Yep.
Some kind of easy to work with, run and gun situation. Yep. So like RAW isn't going to be regular. It's always fun when it's like, my camera shoots RAW, and the couple times you use it, it's great. But, it's going to be fine. I think most people are going to use it. I mean, I very rarely ever touch RAW, and people might say like, "Oh, but you're a YouTuber." But even in when I did, all the corporate stuff, interviews, running around, shooting all kinds of stuff, even with cameras that shot RAW, Granted, they weren't compressed raw. It's just not, It's one thing if I'm shooting Blackmagic raw and I work in Resolve. I would probably shoot raw all day, every day. But,
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to shoot
it's
raw,
not a bummer to
you're
me.
going to get a Komodo, or you're going to get a Blackmagic camera.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I feel it.
Yeah, same thing with the top handle, even a little bit. It looks like this big, oh my goodness, it's awful. But in reality, you're going to have the thing on sticks, or you're going to be holding it, and you'll want a top handle anyway. So it's not going to be a big deal. And if you run it on a gimbal, you're probably not going to be like a couple feet away from the person. You're going to run dual system sound and the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of the world. That could just be me being just over all of this stuff as we talk about it more and more. I just don't care
older.
as much,
You're getting older.
I know.
It's happening.
Turning that old jaded man of like, shut up. No one cares about your raw. Just put the top handle on and shut your mouth.
I mean, put it into perspective. With everything that's gone on this year, and I look at how good cameras are, I'm so much less excited when a new camera is announced than I used to be. I just don't get excited. I mean, there's some really nice stuff going on with the cameras right now, but there's very few cameras that are getting released on the market that are just sort of like, I can't believe they did that. You sort of felt that way when the R5 was announced originally. And if it had like a really, I think it's a phenomenal camera. It produces some beautiful images. But if people want to rely upon it day in, day out for their everyday camera for video, they really have to understand, how they're going to use that camera, because there are heat management issues that you have to very much be aware of. But that was like the last camera that came out, and they said they fit that into that for that price. And I was really surprised in terms of I'm still surprised at what they fit into there. I just wish they had a little bit of cooling in there to deal with the heat management issues. But it's a pretty remarkable, achievement in terms of what they came up with. But just look at the Blackmagic 6K pocket camera and, take the AF and the ND stuff and put that to the side. And for the money that you're paying, $2,000 US, it's insane what you're getting with that camera. I'll put the ergonomics aside too, because those suck. But, if you really look at that camera for $2,000 US, it's pretty amazing. It's just so good right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to reset for this Mark Toya thing on News Shooter's website. He's going to talk about his feature film, Monsters of Man, which looks really interesting. It looks many, many millions of dollars more expensive than I think what the film was made for. And he's got a really interesting story about that. Caleb, as always, it's been a pleasure. It's been a very kind of chill episode, but we've been interacting with the chat and getting into their questions. And we love having everybody here on the show. It's a community here, and we're seeing some new faces. And Alex comes in right at the end with his B7Cs. There he is. Yeah, you should have some fun with those things, both with and without the app. Shazam's coming over to News Shooter. Caleb, as always, always nice hanging out with you. And have a great Thanksgiving. Look, enjoy your family. Enjoy your friends. And, do your thing, everybody. That's what I got to say. Just do your thing. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. It's been great.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Bye,
love you all. See you next time.
All the best.